With summer break having started, I can't really do the same vlogs that I used to do.
So I was thinking of what kind of content I could make now that it's summer, and I thought it might be interesting to guess the dates of some fashion plates. This is just something I was thinking of, so let me know how you feel about this in the comments.
Below.
I was thinking Google at first, but then I realized I would have to go through a bunch of websites and stuff just to find like the dates and the pictures I wanted, so I thought that would be just a waste of time.
So where am I gonna go if it's not Google? Perfect. This is what I was looking for. So for this to work, because I messed up this first one here. So for this to work, I have to click on it and like not notice the year. And if I do see the year, I'll just move on to the next one. Oh, it's slipping. Okay, here's the first one. This to me looks like the late 1880s or the early 1890s because it looks as if the bustle is kind of going away and they're moving towards the little puff on the sleeve, and that's kind of characteristic of that time period. That being said, these kind of hats that go forward like that appear more, I think, in the late 1880s, which could be a clue, as well as the girl's hat on the right, which is kind of taller, which is also characteristic of that. So all this considered, I think that this could be either the early 90s or the late 80s, but I'm gonna say 1899 with this one.
I swear, I meant to say 1889. I do not know why I said
1888. Okay, 1 year off, fair enough. Second one of the video. Okay, so this is definitely the 1860s. This is what you see as the crinoline kind of develops from that shape, which is very like and it kind of goes narrower, and then that kind of the volume gets towards the back, and then you head into the bustle era with all the bustles and stuff. So this is kind of a transition point between that, which puts this between maybe 1865 and 1869. The girl that's standing, her dress is quite flattened out, which is kind of the middle of that range, and I'm gonna say this is 1867. Yo, look at that, that's crazy. Just to like show you in case you think, I don't know, something suspicious, this is what I'm seeing as I'm scrolling through, and when I click on it, I just see the actual thing until I scroll down. Number 3. This is definitely the early 1890s, and I say that because the bustle's mostly gone, but the skirts haven't really flared out yet, and the sleeves haven't really flared out yet either. The whole silhouette is very early 1890s to me. I think this is 1892. The girl on the right, she has those kind of upward sleeves that go a little bit, and that's very of that time, while the other one kind of has the bigger ones, and that's kind of an indicator. I think 1892 might be that transition year where they would both be, you know, there or whatever. 2 in a row. I'm so proud. Oh, this is an older one. Number 4, I think. This is the late Regency period. I can tell that by the way her sleeves are very puffed out like that. This is evening dress, by the way. And her waistline is lowering from the typical, you know, Regency thing, and that's gonna be the transition into the kind of 1820s and 1830s where everything gets kind of crazy. As well, her skirt is kind of a little bit triangular as opposed to just straight down, which also tells me that this is later in that period. Her hair is a little bit elaborate, and this is either the late 1810s or the 1820s, and I'd say that's definitely because her hair is more elaborate than what you'd see earlier, I think. And she's kind of got those curl things in the front, which would come much more in play in the 1830s and late 20s. I'm gonna say this is 1822. Not terrible, not terrible. All right, number 5. So we are in the bustle era now, or the first bustle period. I can tell this by the quite kind of obvious 18th century influence that's going on, which was there for that time, which is all the bows and whatever, and the higher hairstyles, which is their 18th century. And there's a lot of things that kind of show that are influenced from then, which is kind of interesting. So the bustles are kind of there, but I can tell that they're kind of sloping off into the trains, and that would kind of go on until that would kind of progress, and the bustles would continue to disappear until it went into the natural form period. So this is kind of the transition of that, and so that would place this in maybe 1875 or 76. And it's interesting that some of them have like the day dress, but that one girl in the pink, she's got like an evening gown on. That's interesting. I wonder why. I think that the girl in the evening dress looks kind of 75 to me, but the ones in the day dress look like 76 to me, because they've got kind of like stripes and stuff, and I feel like I've seen that on different stuff from. But you know, there's 2 of them and 1 of her, so I'm gonna say it's 1876. This is number 6, I think. So this is looking like the early 1850s to me, or No, I'll just say it looks like the 1850s, definitely. I say this because she's got all those ruffles on her dress, and that would be, this is evening dress, but she's got all those ruffles on her dress, which is very characteristic of 1850s, as well as, the silhouette with all the wide stuff. But that was kind of a thing for like 30 years, so the ruffles kind of help to indicate that. Their hairstyles look kind of, maybe, I'm a little bit unsure on this one, but I'm just gonna say 1854. Does it not have a date? Well, that one actually didn't have a date on it. It was like undated. I believe this is number 7. Now, she looks very I'm gonna say this is definitely the 1780s. No, definitely. Because those kind of hats where they're pretty big with the little ribbon or something on the middle of it are very, very 1780s. We see that a lot, and they kind of get bigger as the decade goes on. I forget what they're called, but the 1770s, I forget what they're called, but the 50s to 70s, you have those really wide, I think it's or something where it goes on the side and it makes it really square or whatever. And those are gone here, and that's also very 1780s. But if I were to place a year exactly on this one, I think I'd say 1785, because the hats aren't too dramatic yet. Oh, and another indicator before I show the year is that her hair is not shown to be very powdered, and that also is the 1780s, because that's when the powdering of hair starts to go out of style. I'm not saying that there weren't still a lot of people that were doing it, it's just when it started to wane in popularity. It just says 1780s, so I guess I'm right. Number 8. This is evening dress, and this is definitely in the 1840s, and I say this because she has these kind of hanging little ringlets in the front, and that's very characteristic of that period. Okay, I said earlier, the things in the front in the late 1820s kind of go into the big curls for 1830s, but in the 1840s, that kind of goes down the face, and it kind of goes into the saggy like ringlets that frame your face and stuff. So that's what makes me think this is definitely 1840s, as well as the kind of skirt shape. It's not so crazy as you see in the 50s. It's got to be like 1842 to 1846, because before or after that, the kind of, the curls and stuff look a little different than that. But I'm going to say this is 1840. I'm going to say this is 1845. That one didn't have a date either. That's so sad. I'm so mad. I just saw the date on a really good one, and I was going to have fun explaining that one. Number 9. So we're back to the Regency stuff. This is a little earlier. As you can see, her waistline's very high. I don't think it is the very, very beginning, because we're starting to see all those decoration on the dress and kind of that kind of flower trim and stuff. And the decorations and stuff kind of just progress until, the crazy 1830s and 20s. But I'm going to guess this is 1810. 1811. It is 1811. Number 10, I think. If I edit this and I have all my order out of whack, it's going to be really embarrassing. So this is a little bit earlier in the transition from the crinolines to the bustles. So this is probably, and these are she's got the evening dress on. And we can see that it's not, 1860 exactly. It's a little past that, because the volume is still at the back, and it's kind of starting to do that little transition and stuff. But, it's pretty early in that. So I'm going to say this is probably I think this could be 1864. You can also tell it's not a little bit later in that process, because in the 1870s and stuff, they have part of their hair kind of down in that kind of style in a way, but they've got it pretty up, which is pretty 1860s. I'm going to say 64. Oh, 66. That's more off than I would have hoped to be with that one. Alright, number 11. Now, the first bustle period, as I can tell this is probably my favorite of all the kind of Victorian styles. I just think it's so cool. And I also think it's really cool how they took all that inspiration from stuff that was 90 years ago from this 18th century. So this looks like it's pretty early on. They've got, the big hair, and they've got those, of course, the bustles for the bustle era. But I'm going to say it's early on because they're pretty big, as well as the trains don't go so far away, which you see as it starts to transform, as I said earlier. And all the frills and stuff, all the flowers, it's kind of, I think this is 1873. Oh, please tell me there's a date. Man. No, I couldn't find a date, sadly, in many ways.
Wow.
I think this is number 12. This looks pretty late Edwardian to me. This is well past the turn of the century by maybe 8 years or so. I'm gonna say this is 1808. Yeah, with the big, wide hat with all those flowers and stuff, and then the way the bodice is like that, as well as the skirt not being kind of the tulip shape, which is kind of characteristic of the turn of the century. I think this is a little past that, as well as the kind of Gibson girl hairstyle. So I'm gonna say this is 1808. That number 13. I think I'm so off with these numbers, I don't know. Alright. So this looks like World War One, like 1910s. I misspoke. This looks kind of like 1915 or 16 to me, because the way their skirts are kind of, I don't know how to say it, but it's just kind of the silhouette that it gives off. It looks like very much a transition from the end of the Edwardian to like the 1920s. They've kind of got this shorter hemline starting to go, and the waistline starting to go down a bit. I'm gonna say 18. I keep saying 18. I'm gonna say this is 1916. Just as 1910s. So that counts. Number 14. So this is in the 1880s. I can tell because it kind of has, the more structured kind of bustle thing where it's not very naturally sloped as the 1870s were, but it's more kind of structured in the way that it kind of goes down more rigidly, I guess. As well as it seems like there's some asymmetrical elements going on, which is very 1880s. And the kind of the crimped bangs they've got going on is very, very of that time. But I'm gonna say this is maybe 1887 because it's showing the start of that kind of bustle shape kind of flaring out, which kind of looked weird for a few years to me, at least. I'm not a big fan of that, how it started to do that as it kind of okay, there's a little spider, wait. Okay, there's a spider. But I'm not a big fan of how that was for a few years, but I can tell when it is. So I'm gonna say this is 1887. 1888, not bad.
Number 15.
We're in the 1890s here with the leg of mutton sleeves that got quite big, so it's kind of the height of that. So this is the middle of the 1890s, which were when the sleeves were the biggest. The skirts are going out like that, so it's, everything's saying that this is way past the bustle, the second bustle period. I would say this is 1895, just based on the silhouette. I think that's an okay guess. Okay. I think this is number 15.
16. This is number 16.
This is what I was talking about, where it's more structured and it kind of goes down more straightly than it would in the first bustle era, where it kind of has more of a flowing, I guess, essence to it. And the asymmetrical things also let us know this is the 1880s, as well as the tall hats, which let me know that this is the later part of that. I guess you could see this as the beginning of the skirt going into the 1890s stuff, but I guess that would kind of be a stretch. So I'm gonna say this is 1886. Oh, damn it doesn't have a year. That's disappointing.
17.
So we're in this is definitely the 40s. And I think, okay, wait. I'm a little thrown off with this. This is the 40s. I just can't. I'm having a hard time guessing if it's the early. So she's definitely got the ringlets from 1840s style, but this girl on the left has her hair more kind of swept back like that with the bun in the back, which is either it could be late 30s, I guess sometimes, but it's more usually would be the 50s. And with her, I don't know, because the bonnet she has looks earlier. The bonnet she has looks a little bit more like, it looks a little more 1830s than 50s. I think I'm a little wrong. I think I'm a little wrong with this one. I don't know, I think I'm gonna say it's 1848. No, totally wrong with that one. 1842. That kind of hairstyle on the girl on the left is what some people wear in the late 1830s, right before those ringlet curls in the front, but it also kind of looks like the 1850s stuff. And I knew that the bonnet looked earlier, but I thought maybe, I don't know, that one was just hard for me. 16.
18.
I think.
You're wrong.
I think it's 16.
Okay, well, you also thought the date on the last one was 1848.
This is about the turn of the century. They've got kind of the pigeon front that's kind of going on with the late Victorian, well, I guess more early Edwardian and stuff. And they've got the tulip skirts and everything. But the hats remind me of stuff that I'm seeing more in like maybe 1899 than maybe the turn. But I'm gonna say it's 1900 just so that I can get more even around. Oh, it's 1899. I should have went with that.
Number 19. This weird fashion plate. Have you ever went on Pinterest and found what you were looking for, but in reality it didn't have a year and you were forced to accept?
So we're definitely in the 1820s here. Her waistline's still quite raised, so it's the early 1820s. But with all these ruffles on the skirt and all the designs with the complicated sleeves and stuff for day wear, as well as the shape of the bonnet and the feather, all the feathers and stuff, I think this is 1821. 1819. 2 years off. I will keep my pride.
20.
Damn it. Calm down. Please, pretty please. So we're in the natural form era here, and that's about 1876 to 82. This is a little later in the period, and I can tell that based on the kind of hat shapes they're wearing, as well as the lack of the trains, which you kind of see as you transition from the long trains after the first bustle era, and then it kind of, as the bustle goes away, the train is there for a little, like 2 years or so. And then in maybe 1879, they start to go away and recess into that kind of more just touching the ground slightly shape. That's in 80 and 81 and 82 maybe. But I'm going to say this is 1881. Oh, 1880.
Damn.
This is a pretty classic 1880s. I'm going to say this is 1885. I think it's 1886. I think that's right, yeah. Oh, it's 1887. It's January 1887, so I was only actually 1 month off. Number 20,
Two.
and the last one of today. So, we're in that natural form range from 76 to 82, as I said before. Natural form period, it's not like they weren't wearing any understructure. They just had like a little bump pad or something that they put that would just accentuate a little bit. But it's called natural form because, like, of course, if you look at things that go before and after that, it looks a lot more simple. For the Victorian period, it is definitely the most natural form, so I get why it's called that. You can kind of see what I was talking about earlier here with the trains, which suggests it's the earlier period in the natural form, because it kind of, as I said, it flattens out from the bustles and goes into the trains, as well as what I said before that with the hair being down and stuff for the 1870s kind of style, sometimes, not to generalize. This is probably 1879 though. No, I think it's 1878, because the trains are still pretty long. I think that's a fair guess. Just give me ideas for videos to make, because I don't know what to do.